So now you know the best uses for each of her skills, let's have a look at some of the do's and don'ts to get the most out of the Revenant and allow you to be the crutch that every team will inevitably eventually need. So the other Nightfarer that the Revenant can most be likened to is the Recluse. However, despite the fact that they are both primarily spellcasters, with their highest attributes being Faith and Arcane, they play surprisingly different, because though the Recluse's raw damage output is potentially higher, as she has both an S scaling in Intelligence and Faith, whereas the Revenant's is only an S in Faith and a B in Intelligence, the Revenant has a hell of a lot more survivability than the Recluse due to her family. The Revenant also has higher Arcane, meaning big powerful spells with really long cast times work a bit better on the Revenant than they do on the Recluse, especially if they focus around applying status effects. So as I said, the Dragon Frost Breath or the Rot Breath going to be absolutely fantastic on the Revenant because she's going to build up the status effect damage quicker and she's a bit more protected by her spirits. And even though the Revenant and the Recluse do both have an S scaling in Faith, I believe the Revenant's is just a smidge higher, meaning you want to go absolutely all in, completely ham on Faith spells. So again, as I say, something like Rotten Breath or even Elden Stars, if you can find that, are going to absolutely melt things as the Revenant. Because most of her damage will come from very slow casting, very high FP cost spells, ideally you want to have a few Starlight Shards on her as well. So always be on the lookout for these and try and buy a few from merchants as you are exploring the map, because it's far cheaper to buy them here than it is at the Spirit Shelter right at the end of a match. And of course, if she does run out of FP, you always want at least one backup weapon. She's okay in melee. The rest of her offensive stats aren't too bad, but just remember she's incredibly squishy, so ideally you would have a bow capable of inflicting status ailments to make use of her relatively high arcane stat and again to keep her away from the fight. And the final thing I would say as another potential suggestion, say you are near the end game and you've got all the weapons you want now, you've got a really good Dragon Communion seal in one hand and you're able to cast these really high power spells quite frequently, the last thing you might want to consider is even equipping her with a Great Shield in her other hand, because as I say, she has painfully low HP and this will just give her an extra line of defense should all of her spirits be wiped out, which, let's face it, they probably will be within the first 30 seconds of pretty much any Night Lord.